to the One About Godzilla movies. This is episode 7 for Saturday, April 27th. Brian was late for the recording, and for some reason, I am doing ASMR. And that's about how much of that I can take. My voice is going to just be shot. Brian's eyes were melting out of his mouth. Today's movie is Godzilla versus Kong from 2021. It's a legendary film. I'm Caleb. That's Brian.
I'm Brian.
And as always, why are we doing this?
Oh, that's a good question. We're doing this because we discovered recently that Caleb has seen all of these movies like 4 or 5 times. I didn't know that. And also we discovered that I had only seen one of them. And Caleb was like, "Hey, we should start a thing and record it." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that thing." And here we are. This is episode 7?
Sure is. Lucky number 7, and we're finally going to have all of our stuff together. There aren't going to be 4 exports of the same episode and 3 re-uploads, and no.
Dude, I mean, you're already a podcasting guru, but by the time we finish with this show, dude,
it's
video master over there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess. Video is just so...
Practice makes perfect.
Even as it gets easier, it's still so tough. Yeah. Anyways, before we jump in, if you would like to see the largely unedited version of this show, hear why I was doing ASMR, why Brian was late, and a whole bunch of other really fun tangents like that, and I'm sure that there will be more in this episode, you can go to our Patreon. It's $5 a month, and you get the episode a little bit early. I let it post a little bit early before everybody else. I don't think Brian knew that. Just a couple hours.
I'll pretend I did.
Like, it doesn't really matter. Anyways, so that's patreon.com/the one about Godzilla movies. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love you to do the whole smash the like button, destroy the subscribe button, because this is a monster-based podcast. I was trying not to persuade you to do things, but I really don't care. I would love if you subscribe, and Brian would like it too, because he's the one that runs all that side of things. And then if you're listening in a podcast player, we'd love if you just give us a rating, say that these guys are stupid, but I love them, whatever it is. Thanks. I hope you hate it. Hi, Reese Roper. Title. Before we really jump in and talk about Godzilla vs. Kong, I have a quick follow-up. I've been meaning to take an aside here on this, especially because it's used a lot going forward in this film. The blue charge up Godzilla, that thing is officially within the MonsterVerse known as the Atomic Pulse. So I don't know.
That I didn't know.
I didn't really know that either, and I like that. So
was there an official name for it in previous iterations?
I don't think so.
Japanese
not
movies?
Not that I really remember. No.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's an edit.
Totally lost it. Gosh darn it. I even have
Lost your train of thought.
I have a whole script here and I can't even. Yeah, so we're talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, and we have, if you've been watching these in order of our release, our lived experience, you saw that we were going in chronological order, but starting with every reboot of the Godzilla franchise, and
every origin movie.
Yeah, every origin movie basically. And since the legendary timeline is one that's kind of the most current, and there's a Godzilla x Kong movie in theaters right now, as we record this, and which will be our next episode, we just kind of decided might as well just do this timeline, and then we can go backwards and jump back into Toho and move forward.
Yeah.
And so that's
finish out the MonsterVerse.
That's why we're here. So this is Godzilla versus Kong. This is, as I mentioned, part of the MonsterVerse. Anything before I do a TLDR or anything like that before we begin? Do you need to say anything to to our
No,
friends
I mean,
out
I
there?
guess I'll just say like technically we've watched a couple of Legendary Pictures Godzilla movies. There is a movie called Kong Skull Island, which is sort of the MonsterVerse origin for the Kong that we see in the MonsterVerse.
Which, hey, Patreon
And
bonus episode. Patreon bonus episode.
yeah, maybe we'll do one.
Patreon bonus episode.
I have watched that. Caleb, I don't know if you've watched that.
Thrice.
Um,
3 times now.
so that is
Yeah.
technically sort of a lead up to this movie that we're seeing right now. It's not required. Doesn't really add a whole lot. But you know, add some trivia items.
Mm-hmm. Add some lore, add some, just kind of like depth to the whole thing.
It's kind of like the other half of the lead up to the verses concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so here's a quick TLDR for you. Godzilla vs. Kong is a 2021 American science fiction monster movie, not real life, but live action. Directed by Adam Wingard and Eric Pearson. Well, written by Eric Pearson. And a whole bunch of names, visual effects, funded by Warner Brothers and Legendaries. This is the 4th Hollywood-produced Godzilla movie, and is the 36th Godzilla movie overall, and is the 4th entry in the MonsterVerse. Godzilla vs. Kong is the culmination of every entry in Legendary, in the MonsterVerse, like you said, like all those films before. This is kind of the lead up to it. 5 years after the events of Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the last episode we did, Godzilla unexpectedly turns against humanity, and Monarch begins to organize a mission with Apex Cybernetics, a powerful technological company, to lead an expansion with their an expedition with the primate titan Kong into Hollow Earth. So Hollow Earth, something that we've heard mentioned kind of all the way up through these films up to now. So they're leading an expedition into Hollow Earth with Kong to retrieve a power source for a weapon capable of stopping Godzilla. As the two titans cross path in a ferocious conflict for supremacy, a smaller group of humans attempts to uncover a conspiracy behind Apex's activities, only to discover the company's ultimate weapon, Mechagodzilla. And then they all fight. So,
as you might
expect. It did pretty well in theaters, and I actually have numbers in front of me this time instead of just thinking that it did well. $470 million US at the box office. It's got a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 91% audience score. And it had a budget of $200 million, so they definitely made some money on it. For comparison, King of the Monsters grossed $387. The first Godzilla film grossed $529. And then the most recent Toho film, Godzilla -1, grossed $115 million. So pretty...
That one's a little more fringe, probably.
A little more French. What?
A little more fringe.
Fragile?
I'm guessing less people saw it because it's a Japanese movie. You know how people are. They don't like subtitles.
A Christmas Story?
They need to get over it.
I didn't really know. Sidebar again. I didn't really know what I would think about because I saw Godzilla -1 twice in color and twice in black and white, and I didn't really know what I would think about seeing, like if it was going to be a major difference. But like in just the impact of the film between black and white and color, and it like there actually was. It felt a little more. It just felt even heavier in black and white, which was really cool. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have to decide how we're gonna watch it when we get to that.
Oh, dude, yeah. At the same time.
Soon.
Watch them at the same time, side by side.
How about that?
It's like bad 3D. All right, before I turn you loose, I'm gonna do a quick rundown of characters: Godzilla, Kong, Mechagodzilla, Skullcrawlers, which you would have really only known about if you'd seen Kong Skull Island. They're nasty. Dr. Andrews. She's Monarch's lead on Kong, and her adopted daughter Gia, who is a member of the Iwi tribe, and she's a native of of Skull Island, and is able to communicate with Kong via sign language.
Yep.
Dr. Nathan Lind is a ex-Monarch employee and a Hollow Earth theorist. And yeah, Dr. Skarsgård. His dad is the other Skarsgård. He's the other kind of famous guy. He was in like
There's
Chernobyl.
like 40 of them.
Yeah. Um, he's in like Chernobyl and the girl with the dragon tattoo. Those are the first two things I can think of. Mark and Madison Russell returning from the last movie. Mark Russell is
Yep.
Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. Maddie Russell, Millie Bobby Brown 11. Bernie Hayes. That dude, he's such a great character. Have you seen Atlanta with Childish Gambino?
Dude, I want to. It's on my list. He's in it a lot, right?
Yeah,
He's one of the main
yeah,
characters.
he's one of the main
right?
characters in that, and yeah, really,
He's a funny dude.
really, really great show. Anyways, his role in this is really cool. He's like some form of engineer at Apex, and also has like this conspiracy theory podcast, and he ends up being right about everything. Spoiler. And Walter Simmons, the CEO of Apex Cybernetics. Maya Simmons, his brat daughter, and I don't use brat in the fun way. And then
I hope by it you mean she looks like a Bratz doll, because that's what I thought you meant, and I agree.
Well, yeah, she looks like a brat doll, but she's also just totally insufferable. And I wanted to punch her in her brat doll face. We do not condone violence other than fake sci-fi monsters. Thanks. Title. And finally, Ren Shirazawa, who is the son of Ishiro Shirazawa, Ken Watanabe,
Which I didn't realize.
Yeah. He does not like Godzilla for, some obvious reasons. And he wants to save the world. And he thinks that by saving the world, he thinks that by helping with Mechagodzilla, he's going to help the humans become the apex race of Earth again. So, yeah. Brian, what'd you think of this movie?
This one I really, really liked, actually. I think it's just solid through and through. Yeah, it's really well done. Some of the story things that I was complaining about the last film, I think are a lot better in this one. Yeah, I guess I could just go down the list. I will openly admit I've watched several movies prior to watching this podcast, and some of them are running together in my head, but I do have my notes here. Um, the I gotta say the opening credit style they've been doing in these movies, it's really growing on me. Where they kind of have like these news clippings, like things that are happening, like got like this theme, and they've been doing it in all of these movies so far, including the Kong Skull Island movie as well. But I don't know if there's something different about this one, or maybe I was just paying attention more than I was before. But I saw that they were kind of using it as an opportunity to sort of like say some things or show the audience some details or put some like little Easter eggs in those open credits. And kind of a cool storytelling opportunity to either catch up the audience on something that's happened. I think they were mostly doing that to sort of like account for people who hadn't seen the Kong movie and didn't know much about Skull Island or anything like that. So there's some cool little moments in there,
which I'm sure was a like pretty wide swath, I guess you could say, of like like a lot of people saw the Godzilla films and probably had not seen the singular Skull Island.
Yeah,
so
certainly possible. Yeah. I don't remember how we got to this point, but it seemed like there's more spikes on Godzilla. Like I just remember noticing like a lot of detail on his spikes as he was like swimming in one of like the early shots in the film, and his spikes just look really cool. Just a lot of really cool detail. This is a film with a lot of really detailed CG. It was done by Weta Digital, which is like,
Ooh,
I mean, past ILM is like one of the best VFX houses in the world.
yeah, I didn't know that. That's
They
cool.
just be similar to ILM, but much later, staggered in time. They were invented a whole lot of things through the process of the Lord of the Rings films with Peter Jackson, and also Peter Jackson's King Kong. A lot of like VFX breakthroughs, and then they've been with James Cameron on Avatar stuff like the whole time. So much R&D. So I actually there was some underwater stuff in this movie, and I couldn't help but thinking, man, like that Avatar R&D at Weta really paid off here in terms of like simulating what things really should look like underwater, or like some like fur or hair underwater, like the way like light is dappled underwater. Like it just looks really, really, really good.
Especially compared to King of the Monsters and watching them that close together.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Another level of detail. Um, this movie really showed Kong as a protagonist, almost human-like character, even more so than in his own origin film, where he just kind of came and went. Um, yeah, just him speaking sign language was a really cool idea. Like a lot of personality and detail in his eyes, the way he'd look around. I don't know who was doing the performance capture for it, or like how the animation team was going about it, but they clearly matched a lot of really good reference of gorillas and how they act and how they look around. Just like the movement, just very realistic.
Yeah.
Thought it was
I'm going
cool.
to look that up because I did notice, interesting bit of trivia, in Skull Island. Do you remember the one troop who is like, he got separated off on his own, and it's the one that they're all trying to go find, and he gets eaten by the skull crawler? He,
Yeah.
that actor, did all the motion capture for Kong in that movie.
Yes. 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 The British guy.
Yeah. And I
I can't
wonder,
remember his name.
I wonder almost if he didn't do. I'll take a look here.
Well, I can tell you right now that that guy
He's in one of
was
my
one of
favorite
the
movies.
motion. He did
Toby
a lot
Kebbell.
of the motion capture. Yes, Toby Kebbell. He did a lot of motion capture. I should say performance capture is the right term nowadays.
Planet of
For
the
the Planet of
Apes.
the Apes movies.
Yep.
He played some of the characters, but also just did a lot of motion capture. I do remember a late night clip, very very many years ago now, where he and or Andy Serkis, I think they were promoting one of the films or something, and they sort of like gave a demonstration of how an ape moves, just seeing like a human move in that way.
Yeah.
So really cool.
Man, I would love to see Andy Serkis in a Godzilla movie. Dang.
Oh, I bet you he'd love to be in one too. It seems like something he'd be up his alley.
For sure.
Yeah, so Kong looks great in this movie. Yeah, the sign language is really cool. Sort of establishing this, orphaned Iwi tribe member as sort of an adopted daughter who's also, you know, speaking impaired or deaf impaired, but speaks sign language. Like having that both as like, I guess for me, like it was a good example of like representation on screen in terms of like the deaf community, where it actually served the story to have that character have that trait.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, oh, we're just gonna represent, this particular aspect of something on screen just to like sort of shove it in there.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
it's cool that there was
down with virtue signaling.
she's portrayed by a girl who is actually deaf.
Right.
Her actress. So sorry.
Or I should say, I assumed that to be the case,
Yeah.
but I didn't actually know that for sure.
Yep.
So
Her name
that's
is
cool.
Kaylee Hoddle.
And so, yeah, because of her inclusion and the sort of that writing, her character is able to sort of be like a translator for communicating things to Kong, or translating back. Um, Her mom also knows sign language as well, so there's that. But so that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, and
Um,
it was. I think it's cool that they made it clear that like Kong wasn't just signing to anybody. He didn't sign to Dr. Andrews, who is like his lead scientist and someone that he knows. Like
yeah,
it was Gia.
they had
The
a connection.
Yeah, they have a connection. Um, yeah,
She earned his trust
yeah,
somehow.
I like that kind of. Well, she earned his trust, but also like he knows that she's a member of the Eevee tribe. Like Kong is smart enough for that, and knows that she's from the island, and he saved her when the rest of her tribe was wiped out as a little girl. Like in the lore, like
Hmm.
he like has had her since she was a tiny infant, and then when Dr. Andrews' team landed on Skull Island, found her, and anyways.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyways, continue.
Yeah, I mean, I already kind of mentioned this, but uh, there are moments in this film when they sort of first face off, sort of on the ship. Godzilla's coming and Kong's on the ship.
What a cool
Um,
battle. That whole battle was so
it's
sweet.
really cool, and just even like the moments of Kong, it's like almost like he can smell something, he can sense something, you can hear him just kind of look in the distance, like he can tell it's coming. There's these really cool moments where their fight takes them into the water because, of course, they're trying to fight on a giant ship. It doesn't really work. Just like the fur under the water and like air pockets and bubbles, like some of that stuff. For like, if you've ever seen like a clip of like someone jumping into a pool and like blowing air out there, or
Yeah,
like
and
there's
just like
the way like air pockets happen underwater. It's just like a interesting visual, and I don't know, they nailed it. It like looks legit. So what, I really killed it on that. Um, I mean, as far as I know, they did like most of the VFX in this film. There's these airships in the film that just look really cool. Um, that's more so, I guess, getting into what is it, Apex something or other is
Apex
the corporation.
Cybernetics.
Cybernetics. They're the bad company doing sketchy things, and the conspiracy dude and Millie Bobby Brown and someone else, right? There's three of them, isn't there? Or
Yeah, it's
isn't
it's
that
Bernie,
who's the third?
Maddie, and then his name is Josh, who just like is
Josh.
as just as forgettable as we forgot his name right now,
I
dude. Like
literally forgot who the third person was, so
I
you
just
must be correct on that.
whiny little bitch boy who
Just
she
there.
needed to have like he was there because he had a car. Like like he didn't even want to be
Served a
there for the
purpose.
whole film and that's all he did was just like complain about it and I don't know how many I
I'm
feel like I
literally
want to
going
go
to the
back and
cast
play
names.
a little tiny drinking game of every time that they say shut up, Josh. Like
I'm literally going to the cast and crew right now because I can't remember who this person was. That's how little he was in it. Josh?
he's just kind of doughy and punchable.
Oh yeah, that
Title.
guy. The um my the first movie I saw him in was Deadpool 2. He's like the Kiwi kid, the attitude. Yeah. Fun kid. Not a great character,
Yeah,
just a complainer.
but whatever.
Um yeah, so they're, I guess, traveling to these underground tunnels from the corporation over to Hong Kong, and there's like these airships that like are
The
traveling super fast or
anti-gravity,
whatever.
yeah, the anti-gravity ships.
Yeah, I don't, it's hand wavy science, but dude, it just reminded me of Tron. It looked so sick. What the like the concept art must have been crazy
Yeah,
for some of the stuff in this movie. It was a glowy and cool looking and very futuristic.
I'm trying to remember what movie. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. You just like grabbed your microphone by the throat.
That's why I don't do it while I'm saying something important. Just pushing them back in.
It's not Star Wars. Oh, it's The Matrix. Either the first Matrix or the second Matrix, the ships have that like electromagnet, like the way that the ships fly, and there's like all the like motors or whatever around the outside of the ship, like all those like.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Can you see that in your head a little bit?
No, because I've only seen the rest of the trilogy once.
Okay. I feel like it's in the first one because they do battle the whole like tentacle dudes in the first one, but it's basically the way that the ships fly in the Matrix. That's what those engines that's what they reminded me of in this movie. The whole like the tunnel, almost like using like magnets, and they're sending so much electricity through these magnets that's what's happening on the outside of them. It's a little, like you said, it's hand wavy science that is like just a little bit hand wavy outside of what we know how to do, because maglev is something that's possible. But
it's true, but science fiction kind of drives what people try to figure out how to do also.
True. Yep.
I mean, someday there's going to be a lightsaber holding out. Will I be able to afford owning one? No.
I wonder if there is, and they just won't. The government just won't let.
I've seen some things that are kind of close. Anyways. I wrote down Hollow Earth ! Hollow Earth!
Hollow Earth!
I was particularly excited about this because I watched the series, limited run series. Well, maybe they're doing more seasons. Called Monarch, which was made after this, but was made previous in time, and they do kind of deal with sort of the first, I guess, in the timeline of it, they sort of deal with some of the first scientists to make it into Hollow Earth with very old technology, admittedly, but the ones who first discover it and kind of see what's down there, and it's really cool. And then, like, you know, even in that show, with their technology, it's sort of like we don't know if we're gonna make it back kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
But now in this movie, like with all the modern stuff, it's still a little sketchy, but you know, the chances of getting back and how to do it, they sort of have a system or an idea of how to go about it.
Yep.
Very cool.
I just had a thought. I was gonna say something there too.
Okay. I have this memory in my mind of a moment in this movie. Does Godzilla at some point unleash the atomic pulse straight into the Earth? Yeah.
Yeah, he atomic pulses from Hong Kong to Hollow Earth.
All the way down.
Essentially creating a new portal.
Yeah. That was sick. That wasn't like in my notes. It just popped into my head and I was like, am I thinking of something else, or, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a whole like how does it happen? Because he's in Hong Kong, because he can sense the like power source. He can sense the like what ends up being the skull of Ghidorah, the three skulls of Ghidorah. He can sense that in Hong Kong. And that's why he's there. And then Kong actuates or like starts whatever that is in Hollow Earth, that like with his little like hatchet thing, right? That blue glow thing that goes around in a circle, and it looks like Godzilla, kind of like wraps around that whole like pillar. And that like Godzilla senses that from up above, and it's just like, oh, you're right there. And like, yeah, atomic pulse, and just boom.
Yeah, all this stuff there at the end was pretty cool. I wrote down King Kong, more like Hong Kong title. Anyways,
I need you to see Pacific Rim so bad.
I thought that would be a good title when I was watching it, so I wrote that down so that I would say it.
That's not how it works. Anyways,
Well, it is if I run the socials. Dude, Mechagodzilla. Let's talk Mechagodzilla.
so sick,
Um,
dude. My
yeah,
favorite Mechagodzilla
the
design.
the sort of the origin of their encountering it, sort of in this like underground arena, should we say? And I think it was in Hong Kong,
Uh
right?
huh.
Was that kind of like in a mountain?
Yeah,
Like
it's
in
in a
the middle of a
mountain,
mountain. There's
and
this research.
it's after they get stuck in the like they get stuck in that thing and sent through the tunnel to Hong Kong, and they're in
Yep.
and there's like skull crawlers in those bins, and they're like, why are there skull
They're
crawlers in
like
these
eggs or
bins
something,
or
right?
eggs for skull crawlers? Yeah, and they get shipped to Hong
Because they
Kong,
need something to fight.
and yeah, so now they're
Yeah, the
in.
whole design of that thing was really
Yeah, it
cool.
was like gladiator slash like the like trash pit scene from Star Wars, and like
Mm.
I don't know, it was so cool. And the way it's all like
Yeah, that I really like the detail in the eyes of Mechagodzilla, kind of like these lasery things. That was cool.
yeah. Um little bit of trivia here. This is not the first movie that Mechagodzilla design has ever been in.
Oh,
However, it is the first Godzilla movie that this Mechagodzilla design has ever been in. It first appeared in Ready Player One.
oh, really?
Yes.
I have to rewatch that. Where does Mechagodzilla show up in Ready Player One? I mean, there's a lot of IP in that
There's
movie.
so much IP
To
in
be
that movie.
completely
Yeah,
fair.
but yeah, it's like for a brief second, and I remember seeing it and going, "Oh my gosh, I hope they use that." And here we are.
That's cool.
I
Interesting.
I kind of I wish it had a little. I wished it had a little more screen time. I wanted it to do a little bit more. But yeah, it's such a cool design. Anyways, continue.
Mm. Yeah, I wrote down plausible human plots. This one had some good storylines. Just kind of made sense. There wasn't anything that felt like kind of shoehorned together or ghost written by someone's nephew or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah,
um, yeah, just everything like seemed grounded. Like, despite what this movie is, like it felt semi plausible and grounded. I think that had a lot going for it. Um, yeah, what's his name? Bernie. That character is really funny,
hmm
well written. I think I feel like I texted you about it, but when I was watching this, I was like, "Am I hearing the Godzilla theme from 1954 in like the score for this movie?" Like, there's moments in the fighting where I was hearing the like the theme. Yeah,
Bum, 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 bum. Yep.
and I think the reason they actually like know that theme is because it's in some kind of remix track that I've heard before.
Yeah, it's
It's some kind of
used.
trap track.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't know
some
what
trap
it's in.
song. There's like an '80s rap song that uses it.
Mm. So like
Who?
I knew I'd heard it
Oh,
before, but
Justice uses it. That's who you're thinking of. I bet. I guarantee you, it's Justice.
I don't know who that is. Justice. Here's a Patreon tangent.
No, stop. I did not ask you to. No, what? No. Justice.
Justice Beaver? Oh,
No. It's they kind of are like they took over where Daft Punk left off. Their song Genesis.
Justice. Hmm.
I'll put a link in the
Look it
show
up.
notes for all of you. It's this may not be what you're thinking, but I heard it and knew exactly what it was.
I will have to find the track I'm thinking of, and we can also link mine as well. Two tracks based on the original Godzilla theme. I mean, I could probably find anyone.
Bah.
Hmm.
Oh no, I need that back. What was the other? What's the dang it? It was on my I had it on a playlist. Hey music. There you go. Simon Says by Pharaoh Monch.
Could be. I was just Googling. Is it this?
What a tangent. Thank goodness I
Yep,
take out
that's the one.
thank goodness I take
That's
out
absolutely the song.
that is?
Yeah, Pharaoh Monch.
Yeah.
It's a classic track from 1999, baby. That's sick. I figured it was hip hop. I just wasn't sure. I could like hear the way the beat comes in.
Yeah.
Simon Says by Pharaoh Monch. We'll have to link that.
Hit that bop bop bop. Uh-huh.
Skibbity-bop-bop-bop.
Get the f up.
Sick. Oh man.
Simon Says, get the f up. Oh, I love it.
Anyways,
I
know I know that song,
tune
but I've heard it before.
PAs with that song sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's cool. Yeah, so do we want to talk about like criticisms, or do you want to talk about things that you loved about this movie first? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I really only
What's
have
your
a couple
poison?
things that I feel like I want to add to the like bin. I didn't have a whole lot that I didn't like about this movie other than that one character. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting plot point. The dude from Apex, Walter Simmons, who they at that point kind of didn't know were evil, but knew that they were like. Sorry, I had to burp. Knew that they were like a opposite viewpoint of Monarch, right? But this whole kind of like, so Walter Simmons going to this ex-Monarch guy who has the Hollow Earth theory, Dr. Lind, right? He had this plan. What all he was really after was like the whatever the power source is in the life force is inside of Earth that they knew that they would find in Hollow Earth, and that's what Kong's thing was powered by, and that's what Godzilla is supposedly powered by. That's why it's blue. That's all he was after, but he knew he needed Monarch tech, and he knew he needed Kong, but he couldn't just so it's like he had this really brilliant plan, and it basically worked. And the only reason it didn't is because like he didn't really anticipate having to fight Kong and Godzilla at the same time. I think he thought that Kong would be stuck in Middle Earth for some reason, or like that was their, I don't know. So I thought it was kind of cool that like the villains almost made it on this one and just still got foiled in the end, like for these meddling teenagers. Like totally a little bit of a Scooby-Doo plot point in there with freaking Bernie and Maddie, you know what I mean? Like they're there hacking with stuff in Hong Kong and like whatever. So
Yeah, he's like a giant teenager, basically.
yeah. But I guess it's just kind of a little bit of an expansion on your like plausible human plots, and I like that this kind of leads into my next point. I like they took the look and the feel of Kong Skull Island, including title cards, the way things are displayed, like Monarch Outpost, blah blah blah, like the yellow text, the way it's all laid in. It's like they just kind of finally put a stake in the ground and said, this is what this universe is going to look, sound, and feel like.
Right.
And they
Early stages.
well, it's kind of like they took Godzilla and they took King of the Monsters and like didn't really get a cohesive feel out of those two movies, but for some reason somebody really really liked the feel of Skull Island and said, okay, let's bring these two ideas together. And then I think we see that played out even more in Legacy of Monsters, the miniseries or the show you talked about. Like there's that feel is still there. The really great storytelling is there in that show. Like human storytelling is there. it's kind of like they like finally brought some people in and said, okay, like we need to treat this as seriously as Disney or whoever is treating Marvel or has been treating Marvel, because that's really the only reason that they had success. There's consistency in who was writing it, who was directing it, who was like that whole team. Even though there are like I guess there are different directors, but there's just so much consistency in lore and people that are all doing all that stuff in the background to make it like, I guess there's just all those years of comics and stuff, for them to fall back on too. But there's years and years of Godzilla films for them to fall back on, right? And so I think it's
Yeah,
cool.
it's like hiring a continuity person, but across movies.
Exactly. And it's like they finally realized, hey, we need to do like that's the last ingredient in the secret sauce here, probably, of just like how we're gonna grow this, because they see the way people treat Star Wars, they see the way people treat Marvel movies and their extended universes, and the success that things like The Mandalorian has had. Or stuff like that, that like even though they are not the Star Wars story, you know where you are, feelings and sounds that you get into a Star Wars story and you kind of know what to expect. There are table stakes established, and I feel like they finally did that for the MonsterVerse. And not to spoil anything, but now that you've finally seen it, like Godzilla X Kong, again, still same feel, amplified a little bit, but it's the same director, I believe. A lot of the same people worked on these two films. So I don't know. I enjoy it a lot, especially now. I kind of enjoy this movie more now that I've seen the new Godzilla X Kong, and now that I've seen Monarch. And seeing Skull
Okay.
Island recently too just kind of helped me. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they did a really great job with this movie. And like I said before, my last little bit of things that I really, really liked about this movie, the test scene of Mechagodzilla kind of felt like a cool mix of like a gladiator style thing plus the trash pit in Star Wars. Like we're like just like, I don't know, like quite a few sci-fi tropes in there, but I thought it was well played, and it wasn't just like a it wasn't just a, hey, we accidentally ended up in this thing, and now, oh, hey, we're in a research lab, and oh, hey, the next door over is exactly where everybody is controlling Mechagodzilla, right? Like they made them work for it a little bit, but it wasn't like, yeah, I don't know, it wasn't totally implausible the amount of things that they had to survive, I guess, for a monster movie.
Yeah,
So yeah. Um,
totally.
how do you feel about taking a little bitty break? After
Sure.
these messages, we'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Yeah, a lot of things are like this movie. Some criticisms, not too many, honestly, but criticisms that I have. There's a moment in the movie. It might have been said in sort of the original Kong research base on Skull Island. It basically, I mean, Kong Skull Island took place, I forget when, basically like 50 years earlier. It was like it took place a while ago. It was when they first like sort of visited the island and stuff.
30 years after World War II. 40. So
Oh, 70 something.
70s, in the 70s, yeah.
Early 70s, if I recall correctly. Anyways, we're led to believe, sort of in the beginning of this film, they've sort of built like this Monarch facility on Skull Island, and it's like a containment place where they're like monitoring and keeping an eye on King Kong. He's obviously like aged a bit, he's grown a bit, but they have him contained for one reason or another. And at some point, they were like, to justify the containment, they said if Kong isn't contained, Godzilla will come. And I immediately thought, what about before 1973, like when he was just on the island? That felt like a continuity gap to me. I guess it was
Yeah,
1973 because I wrote that down. I must have looked up when that film took place, but he
I
was on that island for some time before anyone from Monarch or any humans came. aspect.
Right, but there's something about like
Yeah, I don't know.
what are the words? Like because now, okay, so spoilers for the TV show Monarch, just a little bit.
Okay.
But like obviously Godzilla, the first Godzilla movie, 2014, the first Godzilla movie in this timeline is not humanity's first contact with Godzilla, right? In fact, there is atomic testing that happens that is an attempt, like disguised as atomic testing, that is an attempt to kill Godzilla, and it happens in that show.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And it
only
doesn't work.
it makes him bigger and stronger. And so I wonder if I don't know, but there's like some event that happens in Godzilla that then like causes him to wake up. So he's just been asleep that like from the 70s until
Yeah.
now or whatever, you know what I mean?
Maybe he
And
was
so
Sounds like a cop out,
Right.
but it could actually be the case in universe.
right. Because that is something that he is known to do. It's just like long periods of, and in fact, that's a plot point in King of the Monsters. They like use the nuke to give him that charge because Serizawa's like assistant or whatever. She says like that could like they're like, well, why can't we just let him sleep down there? He'll sleep it off and be back to fight. And she goes, well, that could take years. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a minor grievance. There are some moments in this movie, particularly I want to say like on the whole like ship thing, where there's eventually a fight. It's kind of this everything is CG effect that you sometimes get when everything you're trying to do on film has to all be done in computer, and it's done so masterfully well. Like it's simulated all realistically. But there is a moment where I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, I just know that isn't real. You know,
Is it
like
a little like uncanny valley?
not. I don't like to use that term because usually uncanny valley is like it looks wrong or it like isn't convincing. So I don't think that's the case here. It's more just like a trope that we saw sort of start in the early 2010s. I think I've talked about before, where we finally reach a place where we can do photoreal things. We can simulate what fur looks like underwater, and it looks exactly the way it should look.
Do I get to do my favorite Jeff Goldblum here?
I guess you
Your
have to.
scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
Sure. Yeah. So that's not. I don't really know what the solution to that is. It's just more. There are some moments in this movie where I was like, "Wow, I know all of that isn't real," and it
So
looks
it's like
great.
budget permitting,
It's like-
use real ships and then do animation from it, or like
I don't think that's even the solution because you can't do that. You know, when you have that many different elements interacting,
miniatures and people in suits.
because they do that. They'll like when they're shooting things like this in other movies, they'll like mix and match, and it'll just end up being replaced in the computer because there's so much that ends up getting replaced. It's just like, why even do it? So, yeah, it's a catch-22. But
It's the state of modern Hollywood movies.
yeah, I don't know what you do about that. It's just like it looks so realistic, but it's also like it's two giant monsters fighting in the middle of the ocean on a warship. Of course, the whole thing is it's like, it's just more of a me thing. Like it takes me out of it for a second, where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm looking at something that's real or believable, even though it looks real and looks believable. It's like a weird effect that happens. I have two criticism points here, which are really dumb. Maybe it was just like cut out, but they didn't address how they got Kong on the boat, or how they got Kong in a net carried by helicopters. They just kind of jump cut to that, and we're like, that's That's 5 minutes of the movie I want to see. What are you tranking him, and how are you? How
Yeah,
do you do that? Like he's the
especially
size of a
because this is
building.
one of the this is the shortest movie in the franchise.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I agree. Like, why?
I mean,
I
a
mean, I
little
get it.
detail
It's
like
just like,
that
well,
would
we're Monarch, and we just we can just do whatever we want now because these things exist,
it,
But
it would make it feel a little more grounded if you like showed how that was taking place, or like how you got King Kong on your boat, like,
yeah, even if it was just like
or how you
a
operate these
montage with
giant
music or
shackles.
something.
Like, how do you use cranes? Like, how do you do? These are the questions I have when I'm watching it. Like, just like explain it a little. There's something wrong with me. It's fine.
Brian wants more science in his science fiction
I like things that
title.
are grounded. I just do. Um, yeah. So Kong ends up in Hollow Earth, and he goes on a little exploration, and he finds this cave, and it seems evident that his ancestors were once there. And he finds this magic axe, and it's really cool, and it is a plot point for the rest of the movie. It's used as a tool. It's using as a fighting device. It even uh, continues on after this film. Spoiler alert.
Do you think
However,
that that is one of Godzilla's spines, like from a
um,
past battle?
I did. I was reading in the
Me
trivia
too. Me too. I was
that
just
they're maybe
wondering.
not intending it to be that way, but maybe open to interpretation. Thought it was really cool. He found it, and I was like, "Oh man, he's for sure gonna fight with that." um, but then there was just like this. It just completely lost me for a second. There was like this axe-shaped hole in the ground, and he like put it in the hole, and then just like a bunch of magic stuff happened, and the Earth responded, and it just like took me out of the movie. I was like, "We've jumped the shark." I was like on board for the Hollow Earth thing as like a real place with like real creatures, and then you lost me at the Indiana Jones BS. like, who had
Yeah,
the time to
very
set that
Indiana
up
Jones, dude.
and like prepare it
Yeah,
to like respond to an axe being put in it? Like, come on, you could have done
yeah.
something differently there. It would have still moved the plot forward.
By the way, I don't know when in the movie it is that we see it, but at some point, because you said creatures and you said believable, I was looking at a list of like characters and stuff for the movie before we started, and one of the creatures you just kind of see him come out of a little cave and he eats something. He kind of looks like a salamander or whatever. This is not important at all.
Hmm.
Total trivia moment, but this is how my brain works. I need to say it now or I won't remember because it's not written down. That little dude has a name. It is a species of Hollow Earth. That species name is Doug.
Doug, like the dog in Up.
Doug.
Oh,
Dog, like Doug.
like a man named Doug,
Yes.
like a human man who's named Doug.
Yeah. That's that little dude's. That's that kaiju's name.
It's also.
Doug.
Do you know the comic Far Side? The Far Side.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
of my favorite Far Sides is there's a sign on a gate, a picket white fence gate in front of a house, and the sign says "Beware of Doug" instead of "Beware of Dog," and it's just a man with glasses, like T-posing in the yard. I mean, he's not T-posing; he's just standing there like Slender Man, but he's like not even hiding. He's just like standing there.
Yeah. It's just there.
Beware of Doug.
I love that.
Yeah. Anyways, the only other criticism I had, sort of I think it's just more at the beginning of like the fight in Hong Kong. For some reason, the art style they went with was all of these buildings have Philips Hue lights on them, and they're all the colors of the rainbow. It's like the whole skyline was like a rainbow spectrum or something.
What?
No, it's just like
You don't say.
I literally like it took me out of the movie for a second, where like all of the buildings were like different colors, and I
As the background changes incessantly behind me.
it's trying to. Oh God, put it back. Philips Hue, will you sponsor us? Anyways, title. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it took me out of the movie because I wasn't buying that that's what the Hong Kong skyline really looks like, and I actually Googled it, and I was like, that's not what it looks like. It was just weird. It was like they were putting light bars on all of the edges of all of the buildings, and like this building is yellow, this building is pink,
Right.
this
Well,
building is
because
blue.
the whole point is that this is the future. That was 2020. It was released in 21, and it's supposed to be 2024. So
Out of like hundreds and
apparently we're
hundreds,
behind.
probably 1,000 of like art direction decisions made for this film, it's one that I wasn't buying. I don't know.
I desperately need you to see Pacific Rim.
Should we do a bonus episode on it?
It's another. Well, yeah, I'm down for a bonus episode.
I mean, if we don't plan
it's
to
another
do
legendary
so.
film.
Oh,
It's another legendary film. But effects were done by ILM, and it's directed by Guillermo del Toro. And
didn't we say we were gonna wait until we'd seen some other Godzilla things before we watched them?
I don't know, maybe, but I think these are all the ones that I care about.
Or
so.
was it the anime we needed to watch first? I remember you saying there were some
Neon Gen-
influences you
we
saw in
need
the
to
movie
see-
that you thought I would appreciate if I'd seen some other things first. So
Yeah, I think you will appreciate now that we've seen this many Godzilla films, I think, especially these ones, like these legendary ones, that you will appreciate.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim, yeah.
All right, well, let me know. I'll watch it myself
Anyways.
anyways. And then I'll probably have to
Do it.
rewatch it when you're like, we're going to record a bonus episode on this.
I dare you. Do it, I dare you.
So, anyways,
Well,
that's
hey,
the end of my criticisms.
Yeah,
Didn't have a
I
lot.
kind of, yeah, which is kind of nice that list is not longer than the things you liked for once.
For once.
I agree with you on the whole, like, that's 5 minutes of I want to see you getting Kong on a ship, you getting Kong, out of the containment facility onto a ship, you getting Kong from that ship into giant nets. I know that they just sedate him and move him or whatever, but like still show me. And I don't know. I don't know. The Godzilla doing the atomic pulse all the way down through Hollow Earth. I get, like, I don't know. It's not the most fantastic. It's not the most out there. That's what I mean by fantastic in this case. The most like out there ability for the atomic pulse that he's ever had.
Does that jump the shark for you?
So I think, the first couple times, I don't know, it makes sense because he just got, like, so from the way I see it, or from what I understand, or what I think they're trying to show without telling, you mentioned, like, his spikes being more defined or just kind of more crazy. I know part of that is just, like, this is a new movie, it's a different VFX studio, but they still have a design that they need to kind of adhere to because it's still the same Godzilla in the same universe. It's been 5 years since the last film. He's had numerous battles with other kaiju, but I think he also learned that, like, ingesting more and more radiation is going to help him evolve and be stronger and crazier. And so maybe that's what's gone on from 5 years to now, that his atomic pulse really has grown in strength as he has as well. And then I think they take that to a new level without spoiling anything, but it's like his eyes are pink in all the trailer for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, right? Like, so they take that to a new level in that movie, which we'll talk about. I don't know. I don't have really, I don't know, the things that you didn't like about it, like too much CG, whatever. Like you said, it's a really interesting catch-22. They had to do something. That's kind of just the state of movie making right now. Marvel can't get away from it. Star Wars is getting away from it, but they're spending a boat ton of money, like so much money. Those, like, the video walls that they had built to shoot The Mandalorian, that tech is, like, as someone who is certified to work on that kind of tech and who installs that kind of tech for a living,
Oh, really?
The walls that they are using are just like mind-bending in terms of image quality and pixel density for what is going on.
And the machines running them. I could talk for a long time
And the
about that
machines,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
What's sick about it is that it moves some things from post-production to pre-production in terms of the pipeline.
Mhm.
So instead of like doing a bunch of CG stuff after the fact, you can build stuff CG ahead of time and actually run it in Unreal Engine 5 in real time.
Right. And then your actors kind of like have a sense of where they actually are instead of just being in front of a green screen.
Yeah, as long as the
right?
camera's
Like,
not moving, if it's a static shot, then yeah, they do get a little bit of that context. If the camera's moving, they can't really look at the screen because the screen moves with the camera to maintain the parallax. So it's got to be really dizzying if they're looking at that. But what's sick about it is they can be like, man, like we don't like that rock over there, and they can just like pull up Unreal and be like, oh, let's just move that rock in real time.
Yeah.
And then, all right, take 3, you know? So.
Right. But like Disney are the only ones who has Disney money, and there's just no way around that. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like I can see that, and I can understand why that like might take somebody out of the film. It doesn't do that for me, and I guess I'm thankful for that I am able to be so engrossed in the imagination that I like don't like it's way more real to me and way more like sucks me into the experience way more than like try as Toho did with the technology that they had, but way more than Suits and Miniatures ever did in a movie like this. It like especially the shots and stuff. Speaking of, dude, I can't believe we didn't talk about this. This is the return of the like ground up shot during battle scenes and like when kaiju are involved. I noticed that the other day. That's the return. Like there are more of those shots in this movie than that was something you called out in King of the Monsters. Like they just didn't do a good job
really
with
do
the
much.
scale.
You couldn't feel the scale, yeah.
So,
you know, I may not have like noticed it as much, and I guess that's more just because like that's my expectation is to see that.
yeah.
So it feels natural when we do see that, and when we don't see any of it, I like really feel the lack of it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was something because you had called it out about King of the Monsters. I kind of like took a second, like through, like I was like, oh, we're in a fight scene. Let's pay it. Like I just took a second to pay attention to like, are there any like, and I thought they were mixed in pretty well. Not too many, but it like way more than King of the Monsters and enough to, like you said, it felt natural and kind of the amount that you expected. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You got trivia items
well, hey,
for us?
let's do some trivia, bro. We're gonna ping pong this. Who would like to start? Do you want to flip a coin? Let's flip a coin.
There's one here about like the height difference between them.
He's just gonna go for it. This guy, play in the space with me, Brian.
Fine.
No, please.
I didn't realize you actually had a coin next to you. Sometimes you're serious when it seems like you're joking. Oh, look at that focus.
Heads.
Wow. Okay. Am I calling it?
Tails.
What's happening?
You're calling it.
Okay.
I'm flipping it.
I call it now.
And 3, 2, 1.
Heads.
It is heads.
Perfect. Thanks for interrupting me.
So I'll cut all that out. You go ahead.
This added nothing to the podcast. Yeah, so there's
Title.
Oh my god. Also, I love that the coin hit the bell. That's perfect. What are the odds?
I know.
Okay, there's an item here about the height difference between Godzilla and Kong. I guess. But it just says, when asked about the apparent height difference between Godzilla and Kong in 2018, the director, his name is Adam, said they gave us a good out in Kong Skull Island when they mentioned that Kong is still growing. because they knew that was a challenge they'd have to deal with. Because that movie took place in 1973, and this movie took place in, I think, real time, maybe future, probably 2021, which is when the movie came out. And so the idea is that Kong is bigger now than he was in that movie.
No, this movie's set in 2024.
Okay.
But, yeah, you're close.
A lot closer than
220, 221, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's a reference to?
No.
Mr. Mom.
Oh, that's a good
Michael
movie.
Keaton. Oh, it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
He's like putting up new lights or something in his kitchen, and his neighbor walks in. He goes, "Oh, you doing 220?" He goes, 220, 221, whatever it takes. And that's not how power works at all.
Yeah. You would know.
But power's either at 120 or 220, or like it's not
320.
Anyways.
When's the last time you saw King Kong versus Godzilla, the 1962 movie?
Who?
I believe that was, according to this, is the last time we saw them both on screen was in 1962.
1997. My parents had just had the carpet shampooed.
What?
Yeah.
How? Okay.
Roundabouts 1997. Yeah, and they had just had the carpet shampooed. And that was back when we still had the really massive, like, I don't know, probably like 5 foot wide by 3 foot deep by 5 foot tall TV. Like the TV was made out of like wood, basically, with the TV in the center, and it was old, and like it come from my grandparents' house. It was at my parents'.
That's a lot of
sunk
things
into
that
the
I
carpet.
didn't expect you to say. Okay, side tangent. This is a tangent, something I was thinking about. Obviously, with the internet and streaming services, and most of those two things, the concept of like people seeing international films has like become pretty commonplace. But before both of those things' invention, I don't think there was a lot of international distribution, and like I know subtitles. There was a way to turn on subtitles even on VHS. I like read about it recently or something, but I'm just like wondering, what format are you watching all these Japanese films in, and how, and where did you get them?
They were all dubbed in English.
Okay.
It had to have been like the Sci-Fi Channel. My parents always had cable.
Okay.
Yeah, we always had cable. And I'm remembering there were like VHS tapes. And so
it
and then
wasn't
like
home video then.
There were VHS tapes, but that's what I'm thinking is that they were home video. Like some of them were like my dad taped them on like, TNT is definitely another one that showed those movies a lot. Yeah, TNT for sure showed those. I'm remembering that now too. Yeah, so like my dad must have like taped them. Especially after he learned like I had interest in them, probably started taping them as he saw them on TV. But King Kong versus Godzilla, I remember just like I think I've really only seen that one time when I was a kid, and I'm like I watched a trailer of it today and was like, oh yeah, that like kind of like flashes of it came back. But like I think that was just like turned on the TV and like, it happened to be on. But I remember like, and that's why I say like, we just had the carpet shampooed. I remember like getting home and like my mom being like, don't walk on the carpets. They're still wet from like, and so like kind of playing like the floor is lava to get from the kitchen linoleum floor up onto the couch and like just turn the TV on, and like my dad not caring and just walking in there with his bare feet, and my mom being like, what? And he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't know. That's for some reason that's a memory.
Poor memory.
Yeah.
I don't remember those things from my childhood. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I didn't have breakfast. Um,
Oh,
do you have a
I
trivia
had
item for
pancakes
us?
and a Western omelet. Yeah. So Bernie Hayes, our podcasting friend of the show here in universe, the guy who works at Apex and goes with Maddie to Hong Kong. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
That guy.
Mhm. Although I did get the
He
sense that he
has.
didn't work at Apex for long, but maybe I'm wrong. Does he still work for Apex, or was that just sort of like at the beginning of the movie?
Uh, from what I understand, he gets fired like as a result of helping destroy Mechagodzilla. But up until that point, he worked at Apex,
Okay.
and that was part of how they got in there in the first place.
Hmm.
Because Maddie sought him out because of his podcast. Remember, they go to that like shop and they're like, "Hey, you got any bleach?" And the guy's like, "What are you talking about? Is this some TikTok thing?" And they're like, "No, there's some guy who comes in and buys bleach every day." He's like, "Oh yeah, if you buy that fish, I'll tell you where he lives."
I do remember that. Now that you
So
mention
he has a flask that he keeps in a gun holster full of whiskey, and he says that is a Katsunari single malt, and it's actually it's a mispronunciation in homage to Kazunari Mori, who is the suit actor who portrayed Mechagodzilla in the first two films that had Mechagodzilla, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla. So he just says it wrong. And for some reason, they never fixed it or had him do it again, or nobody cared.
that's interesting.
So that's my trivia. Yeah.
Official heights of these Titans as of 2021. Bye, Caleb. Godzilla is 393 feet in this film, and Kong is 336. Which the significance of that is that it is the largest Kong we have seen on screen, and I think to date, according to this.
Did you did you look up whether, or have you looked up yet how tall he was in Skull Island?
Did not.
How much is the young lad grown? Ra da 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 da. Why am I suddenly Scottish? Da 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 da.
Well, while you look that up, this is an interesting trivia item because I don't remember it, but apparently,
Holy cow, dude! Sorry, that's stunning. You said he was 330 something feet tall?
yeah,
He's 104 feet tall in Skull Island.
yeah. So that goes back to my first
Boys
trivia
been doing
item,
some eating.
where they
Boys been
basically were
eating.
like, "He's still growing," and that one line was like, "Okay, we can make him 330 feet tall, right?"
Loophole.
Because you need them to be kind of the same size to fight each other.
Titan. Anyways.
Yeah. So in this movie, Kong speaks sign language. Apparently, that also occurred in Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong film,
I just got to that part.
which, like, I don't remember when in that film that happens. You haven't seen it, I think, if I remember correctly. But I might have to rewatch it and, yeah, look for that. It's a great film.
Neat. As long as, like, this is kind of along your lines of grievances, actually. In an apparent animation error, during a part of the Hong Kong battle, Kong's left arm just completely clips through a building.
It just swings right
through
through
a building with no damage. There's a link in the show notes if you want to watch that. It happens in like 32 seconds in the clip. It's kind of fast. I had to watch it like 4 or 5 times to see it, but yeah, he just like right through. So
nice. The director, I believe this trivia item is about. One of his early thoughts on taking the film was, quote, "I just want to see Godzilla and King Kong fighting in a synthwave neon city, and that is 100% my main drive." And I disagree with his dream. But I guess it's nice to hear that that was intentional. I don't know why he wanted to see that, but why can't the city just be normal and the craziness be the fact that a giant lizard and a giant ape are fighting each other? Why?
Because
That's not what cities look like.
retro wave, bro.
Yeah, but like, it would be cooler if it actually was like a futuristic Neo Tokyo City. Like if it looked like Ready
Because-
Player One and was neon, I would buy it. Take a regular
Sure.
like 2020s skyline and add a bunch of neon lights to the buildings themselves. It looks weird to me. Anyways,
Yeah, I don't know.
this is the shortest film in the MonsterVerse.
It is.
Yeah.
I think just one comment on that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that you like not yucking your yum or whatever. But like I think that comes from your limited exposure to anime. That kind of like
Oh,
I
the
don't
neon
understand the whole like neon drenched battle scene. Like I don't know. That's a little.
No,
more
it's just the way it
common.
was done.
Oh, okay. Well,
It
that's fair.
literally looked like a bunch of nan light LED bars were attached to the like corners of all of the buildings. That's what it looked like.
That's true. Yeah.
It didn't look
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the way buildings that have real lights would look to me.
I desperately need you to see Pacific Rim.
Oh my god. Title. I desperately need you to see Pacific Rim. Nice. Anyways.
This is my turn again.
Yeah.
Sweet. So at one point, Mechagodzilla attempts to finish off Godzilla using his proton scream by like prying Godzilla's mouth open, kind of to mimic Godzilla's kiss of death from to the Muto.
Yeah.
Motu. I keep saying Motu. You know why? I figured that out this week. I keep saying Motu because that is the name of the parking app here in Grand Rapids. Don't be creepy. But anyways, Muto, massive unidentified terrestrial organism. So anyways, yeah. Mechagodzilla tries to kill Godzilla with the same move that Godzilla used on the Muto, which is also not, I mean, yeah, I think that's a killer move, dude. It's so great. I think the only kill that I like more than that one so far in the MonsterVerse is Ghidorah's head still like squirming in his mouth and he does the atomic pulse, dude. Just absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
I love when they get brutal with the monster kills. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like Mortal Kombat. Like when you rip somebody's entire spine out in Mortal Kombat or whatever, like.
Yep. I didn't realize this is one of the films that premiered on HBO Max in 2021 during the pandemic thing where HBO, Warner Brothers HBO, they did that whole thing where they were going to release a bunch of their movies directly on HBO Max, and there was like a whole bunch of like lawsuits about it and all this craziness.
Yeah,
This
well,
was one of
Dune was
those.
part of this too.
Yeah, though Dune had already come
Dune
out
and-
in actual theaters. So this movie, I don't know if this movie was in a real theater, was it?
Yeah, because I saw it in a real theater. I
Okay.
remember like
But
actively being like,
think-
I want to watch it right now so bad, but like
I want to say
I want to see it in the theater
it was
first.
that they were premiering them in both places simultaneously rather than like waiting.
Simultaneously, but it was only on HBO Max for like a short amount of time, and then they took it away until it came back. Like then it came back out on streaming in general,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and the uproar about it was because there's at least contractually supposed to be a 45-day window for American movies in theaters.
Theatrical.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a contractual thing or what. So like there's a guarantee that they get to be in the theater exclusively for 45 days before they can be distributed by any other means. And that is just like here in the US, I think. So like in Japan, from my understanding, movies are in the theater for like 6 months or something crazy. So yeah.
I'm reading comments in Letterboxd again. No, don't destroy the entire city. You're so sexy. Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
Haha. Monsters go bonk bonk.
I gotta see these.
Would have bumped this up a star if the monsters kissed. Wait,
I
this
remember
happened to me
reading
a
that
couple years ago. That sounds like something friend of the show Sophie would say. Wait, this happened to me a couple years ago. Bruh, I fucking skipped my uncle's funeral to go watch this.
There's a lot of random comments on this movie.
Boring for a movie about giant monsters fighting inside the Earth's crust. Dude, you're boring.
Oh my god. How much satisfaction can you honestly get out of two giant CGI beasties punching each other? Turns out quite a lot.
Somebody rated it a half star. This is riveting content. I can only get so pressed over a direct-to-video thing about a giant ape fighting a nuclear dinosaur, but good God, what happened to movies? I bet you that guy's fun at parties. Another
Anyways.
Mechagodzilla piece of trivia for you. You mentioned this earlier. He emerges from a mountain, engages in a beam lock with Godzilla.
Yeah, he tears out of the
is,
mountain too. He rips out of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, because they weren't ready to. Were they ready to let it go yet? I don't remember. And then he's defeated by Godzilla and another monster by having its head torn off. This happened in the Showa era. However, this time Kong is the one that tears Mechagodzilla's head off instead of Godzilla. And I'm not going to reveal who the other kaiju is in the Showa era, other than to say it is one of my favorite man-made kaiju. And yeah. Anyways,
Sick.
your turn.
That's pretty much the end of my trivia.
I got Dos Mas.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that Gia, the deaf Iwi girl, she's portrayed by an actually deaf person. Toho mandated a number of stipulations about Godzilla and the way that he's portrayed in the film, which I think you've mentioned about other movies before. Like Toho had a lot to say about Godzilla. One of them for this was that he's not to display emotions to preserve the impression of him being a godlike entity. And the director, Adam Wingard, decided he didn't care about that and had Godzilla emote anyways. Yeah, so there's a couple times where we see Godzilla kind of react to something with a slight smile or a grimace or something, and that's I don't know.
True.
I like those moments.
Some facial expressions,
Yeah. And if you think about Godzilla 2000 Millennium, where they're doing the face-to-face right at the start of the movie with Iro and his daughter or whatever in the car, right before the girl takes the picture. That kind of face-to-face, there's no facial expression.
No.
Just, there's the eyes or whatever. Godzilla doesn't, he's just there, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, which I think that's a very cool, I don't know, nobody has thought of this. This is just me being me. It's a representation of how godlike entities are thought of in the West versus the Far East. I think that representation of Godzilla and Godzilla 2000 Millennium lines up with how Japanese culture portrays their gods. And how kind of Far Eastern culture portrays their gods in general as just very stoic, very wise, and terrifying, and even so. And gods aren't really like that in American culture, or
even in Norse,
not even American culture.
Loki,
exactly. I was literally took the words out of my mouth, dude. Exactly.
Wink.
Loki. Have you heard this theory, by the way? Have you heard this theory that what we know? This I don't believe this. It's just some dude came up with this, but it's a fun brain twister. That what we know as Christianity and that story is actually Loki writing a story to cover up everything that he did, and he killed everybody in Asgard and all this stuff, but like forgot about the Greek gods, and the Greek gods are the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and like so he's like rewritten this whole narrative to get it so that like when the Greek gods
Sounds
finally
like
come to get him at the end of the
sounds like
world,
Stan
the
Lee
world
meets
is on his
Dan Brown.
side. Exactly, dude. Right? Like
Ridiculous.
it's just ridiculous enough to be very, very interesting to me. Like such a I don't know. It's fun storytelling, you know. If anything else, I like a good story. I was thinking today, as long as we're on a little bit of a tangent, I was thinking today, what do you know? You probably don't know, but like, what Earth timeline are we on compared to like Earth 616, Earth 412, or whatever they like? All the X-Men, like all the X-Men Marvel timelines, they all have numbers, and I wonder what our timeline number is. And I didn't bother to Google
What
it.
do you mean by ours?
Like this, like what the reality that we are in right now, our timeline
Oh,
is a
I don't know
different
how it's
timeline
referenced.
from.
I'm familiar with the
Is
616 thing, but only like in passing, not extensively.
so essentially, Marvel eventually got around the whole like there's all these continuity errors and there's all the like the stories
That's
restart
what the
so many
multiverse is
times and
for.
blah blah blah. Exactly, that's what the multiverse is for. And so, but they've named the multiverses by number. And so there are people that are from Earth 616, and then there's another timeline with, you know, like this version of Jean Grey from Earth 1004, and then there's like blah blah blah. Anyways.
Gotcha.
One more piece of trivia for you. It's a callback to the 90s and the first American-made Godzilla film, the one that we love to hate so much with our boy Inspector Gadget. There was another script written that was like kind of like back and forth between, and the other one won, and that's when became the movie. But this guy, or this person, Jan de Bont, wrote a script in the 90s, and there was some concept art that showed Godzilla as being able to move about on all fours. And that's something that he's never done before. And this movie, we finally see that happen. There's a scene where he just like chases after Kong by being on all fours and just kind of like runs a little bit that way. This one of the guys who like wrote the script for this movie and wrote the storyboard for this movie is named Terry Rossio, and he also developed the screen story for that unused 90s Godzilla film.
So that's maybe where it came from.
So he took his own idea, yeah, and
Oh, neat.
neat. All right, let's wrap this up. Letterboxd scores. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I also give it an 8 out of 10.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I
dug it.
Yeah, it is. You're going to hear me say this a lot when we talk about Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, but I feel it in little bits in this movie of this like another Marvel idea of, and I think it's where the neon comes in, and it's a little bit where the feel of the movie comes in, where they like kind of took ideas from Guardians of the Galaxy and feel of those movies and brought them into this universe. And I think I kind of like that. And I will have a lot more to say about that for Godzilla X Kong.
We'll have to save it for that episode.
Yeah, we'll save it for the show. Hey, my name is Caleb.
And I am Godzilla. No, I'm Brian. Sorry, I got it confused.
Dang it. 1, 2, 3, pickle.
This movie was called Brian versus Kong, right? Sorry, I get confused easily.
You don't think the king could stand his own ground. Notice that he is not called King Kong once. Did you notice that yet?
Well, they made him look very kingly when he was down in that place. I mean, he had a freaking
Right.
throne and everything. They didn't call him
Right,
that.
but he has yet to be in a movie or anything named as King Kong.
It's true. This movie is
Just the
not
one
called...
dude in that scene at the beginning when he's talking to Dr. Andrews, and he's like, "You don't think the king can stand his own ground?" When they're talking about moving him out of Skull Island.
Yeah, I mean, this movie
I
is
tried
not
to I
called...
tried to exit the show, and now here we are again.
you
So
did it.
how do we wrap this up?
All right, guys, we're...
Say something funny so I can ding us out.
Oh. Dang. I got nothing.
No, it doesn't work. Dang it.
Well,
We have to stay here until one of us says something funny
and
again.
then cut it in.
Oh, no. What's in the show is in the show. I did... Yeah, I don't know. I started listening to music like 5 minutes ago, just like lightly in the background in my headphones here.
Wow.
Because my brain, it's like forcing me to stay focused because my brain is...
He wants to escape.
It wants... I want to break free. That's my head right now.
Yeah, I can see you're getting more and more antsy.
It happens. It happens.
Your number of movie quotes has increased by 5x in the last 5 minutes.
You can't see how hard I am gripping the armrest on my chair right now.
Well, everyone, this has been...
My fidget is so hot from being played with. Enough.
Title.
One more time, if you want to see the unedited, fully ADHD laden version of this show in glorious 4K UHD, ADHD in 4K UHD, you can subscribe to our patreon.com/the one about Godzilla movies, $5 a month for all of that. And eventual bonus episodes. We've got a couple movies we want to watch. Skull Island, Pacific Rim. We want to watch a little Neon Genesis Evangelion. All in the lead up to Shin Godzilla. Dr. Spar, do you have anything else to add for the evening?
Yeah, it's a Stephen Wright joke, and I can't speak like him, but the joke basically goes that he knows someone who has ADD. He said this kid can't pay attention at all, but when he does, it's remarkably clear. Anyways, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you on the next episode.
I once watched a candle shop burn down. Everybody just stood around singing "Happy Birthday." That's my Stephen Wright joke.
We almost ended the show.
Anyways, good night, everybody.